Hey everyone, thank you for joining me tonight. We're going to be talking about citations, and whether you're watching this live or watching the recording tomorrow or some other time, you're going to hopefully be able to learn what you need to know to cite sources properly, understand why that's important, and figure out how to get help if you need it while you're working on your projects and finishing up your citations. So let's start by understanding what citations are and why they're important. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can look at some slides together. So this is the first part of our citation salon, and what we're going to start with is talking about why are citations important. Well, there are several reasons why citations are important. First of all, you want to avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism is basically when you take someone else's work and present it as your own. Often this is thought of as not properly quoting people, but it can also not be a direct quotation. It can just be not citing your sources when you're referring to someone else's work. And this is a really important thing to avoid. It's a matter of academic honesty, and you can learn more about it in the FIT Honor Academic Code. And there's also other reasons why you should avoid mistaken citations or improper citations. First of all, it makes your work more credible if you have proper citations. People really look to whether or not you are citing sources to see whether or not your work is credible. So, for example, if you're reading a blog post and they don't cite any sources and you don't know what that person's expertise is, then you may not take their opinion as seriously. But if they're citing a source that is an expert in the field, then you're going to understand that, okay, this is a credible point. Also, you want to credit the creator. Anytime somebody creates something, whether it's a piece of art, a photograph, an article, a book, it's important to credit that person. You wouldn't want to be stealing someone else's work, and that's one of the reasons why proper citations are important. It's giving credit where credit is due to the person who originated the idea. You also want to have correct citations so that readers can check your accuracy. This is a little bit like the credibility point, but it's a little bit different too, because this is specifically for fact checking, and it might apply to things like numbers in particular. So if you're using numbers that you got from a different source and someone wants to see how that data was collected, they need to be able to refer back to the source where you got it from. And just generally checking the accuracy of your quotations, checking the accuracy of everything you include. You really need proper citations to allow for that. And finally, it also offers a path for reading more on a subject. If someone is reading your work and they think this sounds really interesting, I want to read more about it, your citations can provide a source that they can look to for that. And that's actually something that's really important to keep in mind when you're reading works as well. If you're doing research on a subject and you're reading an article, looking to the sources that they cite can be a really important way of finding other pieces that you might want to read and that might be relevant to your research. So what are citation systems? There are actually many different styles or systems of citations out there, and it's important to understand what we mean when we're talking about this. So a citation system, also sometimes called a citation style, is a set of rules on citing sources. So they're basically the rules that tell you how you need to write a citation and where you need to put it in your work and how you need to put it in your work. They're intended to create consistency so that people know what to expect when they're looking at your citations, and also to streamline that verification process I mentioned, because the source is always going to provide all the information you need to find it if you have a citation system, and the reader is always going to know what the various numbers mean if they're always in a consistent format. However, they do differ by discipline. So different citation systems are used by different disciplines. For example, MLA style is used most frequently in the humanities, but other things such as social sciences may use a different source. Legal citations are a completely different format. So you do want to be sure that you're citing with a proper style or system. And this is something that your professor will generally tell you. So you can look to the assignment or to even your syllabus to see what it is that you should be using as your citation system. So how are the citation systems different? Well, there are a lot of subtle differences between each of them, which is why you really want to be careful when you're doing citations that you're referring to information that will help you to get it exactly right. Things like where the commas go, whether things are in parentheses or not, whether things are in italics. Those are important if you want to get your citations perfect, and they may differ by system. But we're going to talk about a couple of ways in which the systems largely differ from one another, or sort of thematically. So first of all, there's the difference between in-text citation versus footnotes. So in-text citation you've probably seen before, and that is when the citation information, such as maybe the author's name or year or even sometimes page number, will be in parentheses within the writing. So it'll be in the paragraph, in the lines that the text is in, just a parenthetical reference. That is most commonly used with MLA and APA. The alternative to this, well, an alternative to this is footnotes. And a footnote refers to when you would see a superscripted number in the text that then refers you to a note, a footnote, that's at the bottom of the page. They're called footnotes because they're in the footer of the page, or that bottom section of the page. And there are also something called endnotes that are slightly different, and endnotes are when all of those notes are collected at the end of the work. So at the end of the article, all the notes appear in order. But with footnotes, they appear at the bottom of that page. And some forms of Chicago-Turabian use footnotes, for example. Sometimes the information that they emphasize is also different. The emphasis is placed on the name of the work in MLA, whereas the emphasis is really placed on the date for APA. And that has to do with how the priorities are different. So APA is in the social sciences, where most up-to-date information tends to be more important. And so they really put an emphasis on the date because that's what people are going to be most looking for. Is this a recent source? Because that means it has greater credibility and is less likely to be out of date. And then there's the question of flexibility versus structure. Chicago-Turabian has multiple different types, and therefore it offers greater flexibility in many ways, versus the structure that's afforded by MLA and APA systems. They have a little bit more of a set structure, so you always know that it's going to be exactly the same. So now let's talk about how you might cite certain types of materials that would be particularly relevant to students at FIT. So let's start by talking about citing forecasts. So if you're citing a forecast, this can be any trend forecast. We have here a picture of a fashion forecast, but really any forecasting report. In APA, you're going to start with the author. Now, when we think of the author, we often think of a person who has written something. But if no person's name is listed, then usually the company can be used in place of that. So in this case, you can see you would want the author followed by the year, followed by the title, followed by where it was retrieved from. But in the example below, rather than having an individual person's name, like, say, for example, Sally Smith, instead it says Fashion Snoops. That's the company because there is no individual author credited. So you would write Fashion Snoops 2019 because that's when this report was published. Do note that it's when it was published, not when it's about. So this is about Spring-Summer 2020, but it was published in the year 2019. So the correct year for it is 2019. Then you would put the name. So the name of this report is Women's Forecasted Tailoring, Spring-Summer 20. So you would put all of that in italics. And then you would say retrieved from and the database name, in this case Fashion Snoops again. And you'll note that this is double-spaced because in APA the reference page would be double-spaced. So what about in MLA? In MLA, it's a little bit of a different format. Again, you want the author, but this time you would put their full first name rather than just their first initial. Then you would put the title in quotation marks. Notice also that the title comes next after author instead of the date. Only after the title do you then put the full date. And this time it's not just the year, it's the day, month, and year. Then you would say who published it, and the URL. So looking again down below, we can see how this actually plays out. We write fashion snoops because, again, there's no individual author. Then in quotation marks, we would put women's forecasted tailoring spring summer 20. And then we would put fashion snoops. And then we would put the date, the 11th of March 2019. And then finally, we put the URL where this is available. Now note, when you're using our databases, the URL that it's available at is going to say libproxy in it. So it's going to require that people log in, but you should still cite it that way. The only time you wouldn't cite what was in the URL box at the top of your browser is if a permalink was available. If you know for a fact that there is a permalink available, then you would want to instead use that permalink in your citation. And here again, we've double spaced because the works cited page is double spaced in MLA. Now let's talk about how we would cite a forecast in Chicago style. So you can probably see where this is going. Author, and again, it can be a corporation as an author. Then in quotation marks, the title. Then the last modified day, month, day, year, published, and then we want the URL. So we would say fashion snoops. Then we would say women's forecasted tailoring spring summer 20. Last modified March 11th, 2019. And then the URL. And because the bibliographies page in Chicago is single-spaced, here this is single-spaced as well. Now for forecasts, you really have to write your own citations because they're not going to offer you the citation in the forecasting services that we have. But let's say you're in a database. How would you cite a database? Well, for many of our databases, they actually offer features that allow you to cite that database and works within it just with a click of a button. So in, for example, all of our ProQuest databases, but in other databases as well, you want to be on the lookout for a cite button, which you can see this arrow pointing to right here. Often these buttons have an icon that looks like a quotation mark. That's why they have that, because you're quoting something and that's supposed to be making you think about, well, I need to cite it. So that's what you can think of. That's why it's a quotation mark. If you click on this citation button for this work, which we can see is called Work the Loom, it's from Vogue, and it's from 2020. So let's say that I want to find out how I would cite this particular work. I click that citation button, and it's going to pop up this window. And the window is going to say, here is a citation, and you can copy this directly into your paper. So you always want to check these and see if they look right, because sometimes you'll notice glaring errors, but they're usually pretty good. And you can see, you can just with the click of a button, click this copy, and it will copy it and you can paste it in your work. Now you will need to make sure that you have the correct edition selected. So you can see here this says APA 6th edition, but let's say that that's not what you wanted. Well, if you click the little drop-down menu, you'll actually be presented with a lot of other options of citation systems. And you can see, here's an example of me having clicked that, and I'm actually presented with just a laundry list of different styles and sub-styles. So everything from APA 6th to Chicago 16th edition with the author date system versus Chicago 16th edition with the notes and bibliography system versus MLA, Turabian. There's a lot of different options in here. So no matter what your professor has told you you need, you'll probably be able to find it in this sort of a database feature. And it makes it really easy. You still want to proofread, you still want to make sure you have the spacing correct, you still want to make sure there aren't any major errors, but it can be a really great way of more quickly generating a citation for a work that you're working on. Now, let's say that you want to cite a book. Now, this isn't going to work for every single book, but often, if you have found the book in OneSearch, so this is OneSearch, our tool for searching for books, and let's say that you want to cite a book you found in here. So you can see I found this book, The Modern Interior, and if I click on the three little dots by this arrow, it's going to pop up and it's going to offer me the option to cite. So you can see there's a citation button that pops up. Again, it's got these stylized quotation marks. Anywhere within OneSearch that you see this citation button, you can click on that and it's going to give you the option to cite it in a number of different ways. And we can look at this live in a moment as well. Now let's say that you're trying to cite something and you can't figure out any way to cite it automatically using the methods that I just showed you. Well, we luckily have guides to all the major sources of citation used at FIT. We have guides to citing sources in APA, Chicago Turabian, and MLA. So you can always refer to one of our guides if you're not sure how to cite something. And these guides give you lots of different examples with specifics about how you would do different things that are specifically unique to FIT, like fashion forecasts, a focus on museum materials, things like video content or fashion shows. We give you a lot of examples that are really unique to what we are working on. So that can be a really helpful thing for you to know. Now let's take a quick look at how you might find that citation button I was showing you in OneSearch. So I'm going to come down to OneSearch. This is on the library's homepage, and I'm going to search interior design. And if I run this search, when we get the results back, I'll want to specifically look to items that I might think, okay, this is useful, I want to cite this. So let's see. Book, maybe I think I want to cite this book. So again, I click on these three dots and it pops out all these options. Now before I mentioned getting a permalink, here I can generate a permalink, but let's say I want a citation. I'm going to click over here in the citation button, and it's going to drop down a little further. Let me scoot this down so you can see it. And you'll see it's going to give me the citation for this book. It defaults to giving me the MLA edition, but if I wanted APA instead, I could click here, and it's going to regenerate that. And now I just say, okay, copy citation. It's copied to my clipboard, and now I can paste it into my project whenever I would like. So this makes it really easy to generate a citation. Now again, you do want to check and make sure that the information is accurate, but it's a good way to get started at least so that you have a starting place for citations. So let's take a quick break from screen sharing for right now and see if you have any questions. If you end up having questions after this, there are a few different ways you can get help. So let's talk about those right now. If you want help from the library and you're watching this video, so the Citation Salon is no longer happening, what you can do is if you're already in something like our OneSearch, anywhere you see this Ask Us button, you can click and you'll be given the option to chat with the library. So you can say your name, your email address, you could say that you're a student or not, and then you would ask your question, and we will chat right that moment if this chat box is open with you. If you're working late at night and we're not available for a live chat, instead when you click on this pop-out, you're going to get the option to submit a question, and we'll send you back an answer the next morning asynchronously. So that means that you don't have to wait around. It'll just be waiting for you when you check your email. Now, let's say that instead you would rather find another way to talk with us. Well, if you want to do that, you can come to our Ask the Library. Ask the Library collects basically all the ways you can get in touch with the library. This also gives you the option to chat with us, as you can see here. But beyond chatting with us, it also gives you the option to submit a question form if you don't have time to chat right now, but you want us to work on your question and get back to you. You always have the option to do a question form. You can stop by our virtual office hours, which happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., as well as Monday and Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. You can take a look at our frequently asked questions, which might help you to answer a question without having to talk to us, if that's your preference, or you can sign up for a one-on-one research consultation. This would be anything from help getting started with a project to help with your citations. Any of those are just fine. So you can sign up using this and you'll be able to make a one-on-one research appointment to meet with a librarian via video chat so that you can talk about whatever questions you might have. Now, one more thing I want to mention is that if you are on the library's homepage and you want to get to those research guides I was telling you about, they're available right here in Research Guides. So these guides will tell you how to do citations in every format that's used at FIT, and you can get to them just by clicking Citation Help. If you click Citation Help, now you can see you've got the option to choose APA, Chicago Turabian, MLA, or learn more about our Citation Manager, which can help you to manage your sources and come up with ways that you can generate a citation automatically. Zotero is a great tool if you are doing a lot of citations. It's freely available, it's open source, and it's really something that we encourage people to use, and we can offer help with if you need it. If you want to use it and need to get started, you can either use this guide to get help, or you can meet with us with additional questions. Another way that you can get help on citations and other topics is to go to our YouTube channel. You probably already know a little bit about our YouTube channel if you're watching this video, but in case someone shared the link with you, I'll tell you very quickly. You can get to it on our homepage, and this is where we have all sorts of different video content that can help you. So all different sorts of things. And we live stream classes from time to time, such as this one. So hopefully that will help you to find some way of getting help with citations if you do have more questions. Another thing that you can definitely do to get help with your citations is come to tonight's Citation Salon. So if you're watching this live, we are having our Citation Salon tonight, and this presentation is the first piece of it, but we're also available to answer one-on-one questions from now until 8 p.m. And you can meet with us by going to this bit.ly/CiteSalon21. So we hope to see you there, and if not, we're happy to answer questions anytime on our Ask the Library service. Feel free to ask us anything at all, and I hope you have a great evening.